Good morning. This is Chair French, and I'm convening the regularly scheduled business meeting for the Kansas Corporation Commission on this Thursday, September 9th, 2021. I'm joined by my colleague, Commissioner Susan Duffy. On today's agenda, we have 22 consent agenda items, 3 noticed items, and I do anticipate entering into an executive session at the end of today's meeting. So Commissioner Duffy, we will move to our consent agenda items. You've had the opportunity to review all of the items on the consent agenda. Do you have any questions or comments about these items?
Good morning, Chair French. I have no questions or comments. I move approval of the consent agenda.
I will second that motion. Is there any further discussion on approval of the consent agenda? Hearing none, those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. The consent agenda is approved. We will now move to our noticed items. Our first notice item today is in docket number 21, KGSG 332 GIG, and this is a proposed order on motion for subpoena, and our presenter for this item is Mr. Brian Fedotin. Brian?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
On July 30th, the Natural Gas Transportation Customer Coalition, or Coalition for short, filed a motion requesting issuing a subpoena for testimony and documents from S&P Global Platts Gas Daily for all documents relating to the S&P Global Platts Daily Index for Southern Star Pipeline for the week or for February 10th through 20th, 2021. On August 6th, interveners Beneva Properties, the Catholic Diocese of Wichita, and Temple Live Wichita endorsed the motion to issue a subpoena. On August 27th, Commission staff filed its opposition to the motion for subpoena, questioning the jurisdictional authority to provide the coalition the relief they requested. Staff explained that the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC, rather than the commission, has the authority to investigate market behavior related to the data reported to S&P Global and take corrective action where a market participant behaves inappropriately, and pointed out that FERC already had an open docket related to price indices. This order states that while the coalition may raise legitimate concerns, the commission is simply not the forum for such an investigation. The commission is focused on the behavior of its jurisdictional utilities and whether they acted reasonably and prudently under the circumstances. Since this commission does not have the authority to recalculate wholesale prices, that authority rests on the federal level. And because the authority to investigate market behavior and enforce compliance rests with the FERC, the validity of a state-administered subpoena is questionable. Due to the questionable validity of a commission-issued subpoena to an entity outside its jurisdiction, the commission denies the motion for an issuance of a subpoena. With that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Brian. Commissioner Duffy, any questions for Mr. Fedotin?
I have no questions, and I move adoption or approval of docket number 21 KGSG 332 GIG.
I will second the motion to approve this order. Is there any further discussion? I would just add the same thing that Mr. Fedotin just said, but I think it's worth reiterating that the commission in this order does state that it shares NGTCC's concerns regarding the wholesale markets and whether they function properly. That is a very legitimate concern. However, I think more importantly than whether the subpoena, the validity of the subpoena issue is whether it is equitable for us to be making a decision on whether there was market manipulation in this proceeding. In this proceeding, we are focused on the conduct of our regulated utilities and whether they acted appropriately under the circumstances. And it would not be equitable for us to make a decision either allowing or disallowing wholesale market costs before the proceedings where those costs are being considered at the federal level. And so that is what I rest my decision on in this case. So I wanted to make that comment known. With that, if there's no further discussion, those in favor of the order, please vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. The order is approved. We now move to our second noticed item, and this is also in docket number 21 KGSG 332 GIG, and it is a proposed order on NGTCC's motions to remove confidential designations for certain documents. And again, our presenter for this item is Mr. Brian Fedotin.
Yes, thank you, commissioners. On August 2nd, the coalition filed a motion to designate as public documents the February 2021 supplier invoices paid by Kansas Gas Service. The coalition argues it's difficult to imagine a public hearing could be meaningful if the public doesn't have access to the winter gas supply plan, the amounts charged by stated suppliers of natural gas, the categories of contract purchases, the price and cost of gas and storage withdrawal and injection volumes, and gas hedging plans affecting prices. On August 11th, Kansas Gas Service filed its objection to the motion to designate public documents, noting that rather than cite any legal authority, the coalition simply stated to have a meaningful public hearing, they needed the documents. Kansas Gas Service asserts that the invoices are trade secrets as well as proprietary commercial financial information that warrants protection. On August 12th, commission staff filed its response stating that it doesn't believe the circumstances justify deviation from the commission's standard practice related to confidentiality. On August 13th, the coalition filed a motion to make public an additional document, which would be the responses to data requests issued by staff to Kansas Gas Service seeking the estimated usage for Kansas Gas sales customers for the month of February 2021, as well as the actual usage. And on August 23rd, Kansas Gas Service filed an objection to that second motion, explaining that if the commission were to disclose the amount of gas estimated and purchased, this information could be exploited by other natural gas suppliers in the future and result in higher gas supply costs for Kansas Gas Service's customers. Here, the commission denies the motion to designate all of the documents as public documents because they qualify as trade secrets under KSA 663320, and disclosure is not warranted after considering the facts enumerated in KSA 661220A subsection A. This order also explains that disclosure of the documents will not aid the commission in fulfilling its function, in part because staff already has access to these documents, as do the other parties, including the coalition. Again, this order would deny both motions to make the documents public. With that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Fedotin. Commissioner Duffy, do you have any questions for Mr. Fedotin?
I would just like to add or ask Brian, it also does deny the coalition's request for attorney fees. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Commissioner Duffy. I'm sorry. I wasn't sure if I was muted or not, and so that was the delay. But yes,
Okay.
It does, because it denies the merits of the motion. So attorney's fees wouldn't make sense. So
Okay. And I agree with, and we'll reiterate, I don't know what the public disclosure would add that the coalition and other interveners don't already have access to. I support this order. And with that, I move approval of the order.
And I will second that motion. We have a motion and a second to approve the described order. Is there any further discussion? I would just add, support what Commissioner Duffy just said to me. This was sort of a perplexing motion because, to reiterate Commissioner Duffy and Mr. Fedoten's comments, every party in this proceeding has access to these materials. NGTCC itself has access to the materials and can fully use them throughout the proceeding. The Citizens Utility Ratepayer Board, who represents all residential and small commercial ratepayers throughout the state, has full access to these documents. The Kansas Attorney General's office, who's intervened in the proceeding, has full access to the documents and can use them as they see fit. So to me, there is nothing added by simply making all the documents available to the general public. It does not change our investigation in any way. So I absolutely support what Commissioner Duffy and Mr. Fedoten have said. So with that, if there is no further discussion, I will ask those in favor of approving the motion to vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. The order is approved. Thank you, Mr. Fedoten.
Thank you,
We will
Commissioners.
now move to our third noticed item on today's agenda. This is in docket number 22 TRAM 104 PEN. And this is a proposed penalty order in that docket. Our presenter for this item is Mr. Ahsan Latif. Good morning, Ahsan.
Good morning, Commissioners. I was having some connection issues, so I had to reconnect with my phone. I apologize. The penalty order before you levies a $7,000, $850 fine against Remco Demolition of Springs. The compliance review of this carrier was recommended by staff after Remco was involved in a fatality accident in July. Our investigators found 10 violations, including a $1,000 violation for failure to ensure each driver selected for random alcohol and controlled substances testing had an equal chance of being selected, a $1,000 violation for failing to test a driver for alcohol and controlled substances after a DOT recordable accident. The carrier also had violations for lack of inspections and maintenance and failure to maintain required documents and driver qualification files. Of special importance is that the penalty order includes an enhanced violation, a $2,500 violation for repeatedly using a driver without a valid CDL, despite previously being cited by the same by the KHP at a roadside inspection. In the penalty matrix, the enhanced penalties are recommended if a violation is deemed intentional or if it is found twice in a 24-month period. Generally, we have construed repeat offenses after a carrier has been penalized for the same violation to be considered intentional. And in this case, the carrier was cited at a roadside inspection for lack of CDL and continued using that driver. So we believe the violation was intentional. The order approving the penalty matrix for fiscal year 2022 has language stating the commission can deviate from the matrix at their discretion. In this case, staff supports an increase of the penalty from the state that's stated in the matrix, which would have been $1,000. Instead, increasing it, we're requesting an increase to $2,500 due to the intentional nature of the violation and the fact that the driver did not have a CDL in December 2020 and still did not have one in July 2021, yet continued to be used for CDL qualifying trips. Our belief is the carrier needs to be made aware of the importance of using CDL possessing drivers. Staff believes this order is the proper course of action to ensure compliance with the applicable motor carrier rules and regulations. And with that, staff recommends approval of this order. I, as well as staff, are available to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Latif, for that explanation of the proposed order. At this time, I'll ask Commissioner Duffy, do you have any questions on the order described by Mr. Latif?
Thank you, Chair French. I will just say this. I was working for the Department of Revenue in 1993 when the CDL was enacted. The department went through, just huge leaps and bounds to ensure that persons wanting their CDL license were tested and received those license on a timely basis. The CDL license is just a basic standard license that motor carrier operators have to have. I mean, there's no getting around that. And I do believe that staff's recommendation to deviate away from the uniform penalty guideline is definitely a good recommendation here. And I heartily support it because there is no reason that individual did not go and get his CDL. Or maybe there is a reason he can't get a CDL, which is even worse, but it is definitely intentional. And it appears this company also has other issues that need to be resolved that are of a serious nature. And I support the recommendations by staff, and I move to approve.
I would second that motion to approve the described order. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Hearing none, those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. The order is approved. Thank you, Mr. Latif. We have now reached the conclusion of the items on today's business agenda. At this time, I do move that the commission enter into an executive session not to exceed 30 minutes to discuss attorney-client privilege matters pursuant to KSA 754319B2 for consultation with an attorney to obtain legal advice. And I further move that the following be included in the meeting. General Counsel Brian Fedotin, outside counsel Mr. Philip Gregson, and Ryan A. Hoffman, Conservation Division Director. This time we will, that is the motion, and the commission will, well, that is the motion.
And I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second to enter into executive session. Those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we will, now that the motion is approved, the commission anticipates it will reconvene in the first floor hearing room at 10:50. And we will now enter a breakout room.
And by magic, we're here.
All right. We have returned from executive session where no action was taken. At this time, if there is no business to come before the commission, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second, those in favor of adjourning, please vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Everyone.
Take care.
Bye-bye.